Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most unexpected turns in the ongoing conflict. The moment Ukrainian drones struck Russia's largest drone factory, followed by a chain of events nobody saw coming. The story is intense, fast, moving, and full of consequences that go far beyond the explosion itself. So let's break down exactly what happened, why it matters, and what the situation means for the battlefield going forward. The strike began with a coordinated swarm of Ukrainian long-range drones traveling deep into Russian territory, far beyond the usual frontline hits. These drones weren't the typical short-range quadcopters, they were heavy, long-distance models designed for strategic targets. The goal wasn't just disruption, it was symbolic, tactical, and psychological all at once. As they crossed into Russian airspace, local air defenses were activated almost immediately, but the swarm was too large, too fast, and too spread out. Multiple drones slipped through and headed straight toward the manufacturing plant. Russia's largest drone factory wasn't just any industrial site. For months, intelligence reports indicated that this facility was the backbone of Russia's expanding drone program. Particularly the production of kamikaze drones used heavily across Ukraine. The site produced engines, frames, electronics, and guidance systems. Taking it out wasn't just about destroying buildings, it was about slowing Russia's operational capabilities. When the drones reached the facility, security cameras captured the moment the main building lit up with fire. Windows shattered, flames erupted, and thick black smoke filled the sky. Workers scrambled to evacuate as emergency teams rushed to the scene. The strike was precise, controlled, and devastating. Within minutes, Russian state media scrambled to downplay the damage. They reported minor disruptions and partial damages, claiming everything would be restored within days. But unofficial footage told a very different story. Videos posted by nearby residents showed massive flames engulfing entire sections of the factory. Fire crews fought for hours just to contain the blaze. Reports later suggested that key production lines, including critical electronics assembly units, had been completely destroyed. Analysts began comparing the strike to earlier Ukrainian operations, but this one stood out because of the distance and strategic impact. Just when it seemed like the story ended there, something surprising happened. Instead of immediate retaliation, Russia quietly shut down several nearby facilities. Sources reported fears of follow-up Ukrainian strikes. Some surrounding factories, warehouses, and administrative buildings were suddenly evacuated. This wasn't routine. It was a sign that the Russian command was uncertain about how many more drones Ukraine had in the air. Radar systems were put on high alert, and the airspace was briefly restricted over multiple regions. The psychological impact of the strike was nearly as significant as the physical damage. After the dust settled, Ukrainian officials made a public statement. They didn't deny the strike, but they emphasized its purpose, targeting the machinery of war, not civilians. The message was clear: Ukraine was sending a warning that no military production facility deep inside Russia was truly safe. This raised serious discussions among analysts about the future of long-range warfare. If Ukraine could consistently hit targets hundreds of kilometers away, it changed the strategic map completely. Countries around the world began analyzing drone warfare differently, especially as more evidence suggested that Ukraine was now producing its own long-range drones in higher quantities. But then things escalated further. Russia responded not with a single retaliatory attack, but with a massive information and cyber operation. Several Ukrainian government websites experienced temporary shutdowns. Attempts to disrupt communication networks increased. The cyber side of warfare became just as prominent as the explosions on the ground. Ukraine countered, restoring systems quickly and exposing parts of Russia's cyber strategy publicly. For a brief moment, the digital battlefield overshadowed the physical one. Meanwhile, drone analysts started breaking down what made the Ukrainian strike so effective. Satellite imagery revealed that the drones likely used a combination of terrain masking, coordinated timing, and multi-directional approach paths. This made it harder for Russian air defense systems to track them simultaneously. The attack also hinted at improved Ukrainian intelligence capabilities. They not only knew the factory layout, but also the shift changes, security blind spots, and weak points in the building's structure. This level of precision indicated deep reconnaissance efforts and possibly insider information. Experts also began discussing the geopolitical aftermath. Countries supplying Ukraine with technology were now watching closely. The strike proved how advanced Ukrainian drone engineering had become. Nations that once hesitated to support long-range drone development now saw its effectiveness. The success created new diplomatic conversations, new negotiations, and new pressure on Russia. Even international markets reflected the event. Reports showed rising concerns about Russia's drone exports, especially to its allies, after the factory damage disrupted major production pipelines. As the investigation continued, Russian officials faced internal criticism. Analysts inside Russia questioned how such a high-value facility wasn't protected adequately. If a long-range Ukrainian drone could reach the area without being intercepted, what did that say about Russia's defensive infrastructure? Military bloggers and pro-war commentators began demanding accountability. Some accused the government of underestimating Ukraine's technological progress. Others suggested corruption or poor leadership within the facility's management. The debate spread across social media platforms, causing visible fractures inside the Russian information landscape. Then came the unexpected twist. Several days after the strike, Ukraine released footage showing new drone models being tested. These models appeared more aerodynamic, faster, and potentially capable of carrying heavier payloads. The message was unmistakable. The strike was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter in Ukraine's long-range drone strategy. This fueled further anxiety in Russia, prompting the military to reposition air defense systems closer to industrial zones and strategic assets. But repositioning defenses meant leaving other regions exposed. It created a strategic dilemma Russia had not prepared for. The strike also influenced battlefield dynamics. With Russia's drone production temporarily disrupted, Ukrainian forces reported fewer kamikaze drone attacks on certain frontline sectors. Soldiers noted decreased pressure in drone-heavy zones. While temporary, this shift gave Ukraine breathing room to regroup, resupply, and reposition artillery. Commanders took advantage of this window to reinforce defensive lines and plan new countermeasures. Even a short disruption in drone supplies can change the rhythm of a conflict, and this strike did exactly that. International observers began comparing the event to earlier historical moments where targeted strikes reshaped entire conflicts. Some analysts drew parallels to past wars where disrupting supply chains crippled military effectiveness. But this was different because drones are cheap, fast to produce, and central to modern warfare. Damaging the largest drone factory meant hitting the heart of Russia's modern military adaptation. If restored too slowly, Russia risked falling behind in the evolving drone arms race. If restored too quickly, it signaled that Ukraine needed to escalate further. Either way, the world watched closely. As days turned into weeks, new satellite images revealed reconstruction efforts at the factory site. Russia worked rapidly to rebuild damaged sections, bringing in temporary structures, replacement machinery, and additional security forces. But rebuilding isn't the same as restoring full production. Skilled engineers were reportedly reassigned from other regions. Replacement components had to be sourced from new suppliers, many of whom were now under scrutiny due to sanctions. The process became slower and more expensive. What used to be a smoothly operating production line turned into a patchwork operation struggling to meet demand. On the Ukrainian side, morale surged. Citizens and soldiers celebrated the strike online, viewing it as a major achievement. The idea that Ukraine could reach deep into Russian territory gave people renewed confidence. It strengthened national unity and reinforced the belief that innovative technology could balance Russia's numerical advantage. Ukrainian engineers and drone designers received public praise, motivating further innovation. This psychological effect spread across the country, fueling determination despite ongoing hardship. Meanwhile, military experts continued debating what the strike meant for future strategy. Some argued it proved drones had officially replaced traditional long-range missiles in certain roles. Others suggested the event marked a turning point in how nations will defend critical infrastructure. Air defenses designed decades ago weren't built to handle modern swarms of autonomous or semi-autonomous drones. Countries around the world realized they needed new detection systems, faster reaction times, and better counter-drone technologies. In a strange way, this single strike changed defense planning far beyond the borders of Ukraine and Russia. As political pressure increased, Russia tried shifting the narrative. Officials highlighted their progress in reconstructing the factory, releasing controlled footage showing workers repairing machinery. But independent analysts noticed that the released footage avoided showing the sections where the heaviest damage occurred. It became clear that the recovery was still incomplete. Ukraine continued monitoring the site through satellite and intelligence networks, carefully assessing Russia's ability to resume mass production. Then came another unexpected development. Russia launched a wave of retaliation strikes targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Their goal was to offset the symbolic and tactical impact of the drone factory strike. Power stations, electrical grids, and industrial facilities were hit across several regions. Ukraine responded quickly, restoring power where possible and strengthening air defenses. But the message was clear. Russia wanted to send a signal that every Ukrainian attack on strategic assets would be met with large-scale retaliation. This exchange intensified the conflict, drawing international criticism. European leaders condemned attacks on civilian energy infrastructure and urged restraint. Discussions about providing Ukraine with additional air defense systems accelerated. The strike had triggered a domino effect that now involved multiple nations and political actors. What began as a drone attack on a single factory changed diplomatic conversations across continents. Despite the escalation, many analysts argued that Ukraine's decision to strike was a calculated risk. The factory played a crucial role in Russia's drone supply chain. If Ukraine hadn't targeted it, Russian drones would continue overwhelming frontline defenders. By striking first, Ukraine disrupted momentum and forced Russia to reorganize. The risk of retaliation was real, but the potential reward, slowing down Russia's drone capabilities, was strategically significant. As more details emerged, investigators revealed that the factory was not just producing drones for the current conflict, but also developing new prototype models. Some had longer range, improved targeting systems, and enhanced durability. Destroying these prototypes before they reached the battlefield may have been one of Ukraine's primary objectives. Removing future threats is as important as countering current ones. In the long run, this could reshape the balance of drone technology between the two nations, but the most surprising outcome came weeks later when insiders reported internal disputes within Russia's drone manufacturing network. Different regions blamed each other for security lapses. Funding issues surfaced. Engineers complained about rushed deadlines and unrealistic expectations. The centralized network that once pushed Russia's drone program forward began to show cracks. The strike didn't just damage a building, it disrupted an entire technological ecosystem. Ukraine, on the other hand, continued expanding its own drone production. International donors increased support. Local companies stepped up manufacturing. Engineers experimented with new materials and propulsion systems. The success of the strike inspired further investment, accelerating the growth of Ukraine's drone industry. In some regions, factories shifted from civilian products to military drone components, creating an industrial transformation driven by necessity. While both nations adjusted, the global defense community kept watching. Military conferences began featuring discussions about the strike's implications. Experts debated how drone warfare would evolve. Some predicted that future conflicts would be dominated by long-range autonomous drones. Others argued that defending against swarms of small drones would become the most critical military challenge of the next decade. The Ukrainian strike became a reference point in these predictions, a real world case study shaping future doctrines. Months later, the full picture became clear. The strike didn't end Russia's drone program, but it slowed it, disrupted it, and forced costly adjustments. It didn't win the war, but it shifted momentum, boosted morale, and improved Ukraine's strategic position. Most importantly, it showed that technology, intelligence, and innovation could overcome geographical limits. It proved that in modern warfare, distance is no longer the barrier it once was. The world saw how a single coordinated operation could ripple across military, political, economic, and psychological dimensions. And as Ukraine continued developing new capabilities, Russia found itself continually adjusting, defending, and recalculating. The strike marked a turning point, not because of the explosion itself, but because of everything that followed, everything it triggered, exposed, and transformed. And that is the full breakdown of the Ukrainian drone strike on Russia's largest drone factory, and the surprising chain of events that came after. This story is still unfolding, and as more details emerge, the implications will continue shaping the conflict and the technology behind modern warfare.